Hi everybody, I'm Tony at UIP Interface Brief, and it is day 64 of the 100 Days of Labbing Journey. It is 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I'm just wrapping up the lab that I was working on yesterday and that I wanted to continue, and so I did that, and then I did one more lab. So I'm just going to dive right in. I'm going to jump right into a whiteboard and then show an example of what I was doing, just so I can sort of exercise my mind a little bit on what I was doing, and just so I can sort of talk through it a little bit, just to help me better understand it, and hopefully it's helpful information to share. So here is my topology, and I'm putting myself in the upper right. So here, this is a multi-access segment, and these are serial links. I guess actually they're not serial links, they're Ethernet links. I was going with a picture in my mind. I was using an example topology which showed serial links. These are actually Ethernet links. In the original, they were shown as serial links. This is going to be router 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the only things to watch for here are there's a loop back on 4, and there's a loop back on 1. I'll start breaking down some of the routing protocol boundaries. So this right here is OSPF, and this here is going to be RIP. Okay, so in itself, if you just configure the routing boundaries as seen in this topology, router 4 cannot reach router 1 because there's no redistribution going on. So I went ahead and did a mutual redistribution on both router 2 and 3. And what that does is that introduces a routing loop. Because the information from OSPF gets advertised into RIP, it gets shared over to router 2. Router 2 takes that, re-advertises it back into OSPF. And in theory, that happens over and over and over. Yesterday, I showed an example of this wasn't actually happening the way that it is described in theory and the way that I think it should happen. And that's because I was looking at it from the perspective of here on router 1. I was thinking that I should see this loopback of router 4. I should see 2 entries in the routing table on router 1. And that wasn't actually true. What was happening was I was only getting 1 entry on router 1. And I haven't quite put my finger on that yet, why I only see 1. And I'm wondering if anyone else has a tip about that. And I'm wondering if it's something about how OSPF elects which ASBR to forward to. And what I mean is router 1 thinks that the loopback of router 4 is behind router 2 and behind router 3. But how does it decide which path to choose? I'm still trying to hone in exactly what that decision-making process is so I can better understand it. But ultimately, to break this loop, you needed to bring down the administrative distance of RIP from 120, which is its default administrative distance, down to 109. And what that'll do is that will make router 2 or router 4, or both of them rather, any of the prefixes that originate from RIP will stay in the RIP boundary. What was happening is after the mutual redistribution, before making this move right here, router 3, in order to reach the loopback of 4, would not go this way. In fact, it would forward up to router 1 would forward to 2, 2 would forward to 4. And that's because the OSPF administrative distance is 110, which is better than RIP's 120. So I think one of the rules of thumb here that I'm trying to instill in my mind when seeing this sort of topology is is you always want to be able to, and this, you know, as with every rule in networking, there's always a caveat, but you always want to be able to reach prefixes through their originating protocol, or their native protocol. And what that means is router 4's loopback, what I'm trying to hit here, what I'm using as my reference point. Router 3 should not be looking into OSPF to get to that prefix. It should only be looking to RIP. And the way to do that is to lower the administrative distance to something lower than OSPF. And in this case, I did 110. Now, this is an example that came out of Cisco documentation. This is not a lab that I thought up on my own. I read about this because I'm trying to study the different cases that cause a routing loop through redistribution, because I see this all the time in CCIE labs, and all the time I end up not getting full connectivity in my labs, and I'm losing points over it. And so I want to make sure I fully understand it, because when I'm doing my CCIE prep labs, I'm normally just sort of going through the motions of doing the tasks and just like, oh, well, it looks like some new prefixes are in the routing table, and just walking away from it. When that's actually not the case. Sometimes not all the prefixes get redistributed, and sometimes the prefixes are churning. They're in there when I look one time, and then they're not in there when I look back another time. So I'm just trying to understand the different situations and things to look out for, and the behavior of some of these items when doing this redistribution in this manner. So that's what I've been working on the past couple of days, and there's more to come. So what I finished up with is, after I did that and I solved that, as soon as I lower this to 109, the RIP routing domain, administrative distance on routers 2 and 3 to 109, router 1 has 2 entries to the loopback of 4 and 2 entries to this multi-access segment, which is perfect. And router 4 had 2 entries at that moment to anything that was out here, which was this link, and the loopback on router 1. So we achieved, you know, sort of redundancy and optimization, and I think that's what redistribution is for. So I'm just trying to erase here my marks. So after I did that, I went ahead and just cleared out the redistribution, and I went with a one-way redistribution, which is something a little bit different. So I brought RIP's administrative distance back up to 120, its default, and on router 3, I redistributed OSPF into RIP, and on router 2, I redistributed RIP into OSPF. And this was a little funky as well. What was happening here was, again, to reach router 4's loopback, which is here, from router 3 would send that packet up to router 1 would send it to 2, and 2 would send it to 4. And that's because, again, from the administrative distance. So what I did here is I actually did some tagging. I don't know if that's the preferred method, but here on router 3, what I did was as I was doing the redistribute command, so I was redistributing OSPF into RIP, I was running it through a route map, and that route map was first a deny statement, so I was denying anything with one. I was using the administrative distance as my tag numbers, denying everything with 120, and then everything else that matches essentially my OSPF routes, and I did that with a prefix list, set a tag of 110. Over on router 2, as I was doing the redistribution command in the OSPF configuration, I was running it through a route map that said deny 110, anything with a tag of 110, and anything that matches the RIP prefixes, and again, I just used a prefix list for that, set a tag of 120. So you can see what's going to happen here. This multi-access segment and this loopback are matched in this prefix list and get set 120. That gets advertised up to 1, and when 1 sends down to router 3. Router 3 is going to deny it. So router 3 is not going to continue this redistribution loop going all the way around, right? We're going to break that loop. And then the same thing with the OSPF ones. Anything that on router 3 that is any prefixes that match the prefix list that I've defined in OSPF, set the tag to 110. That's going to get advertised out to 4. It's also going to get advertised out to 2. And when 2 tries to redistribute routes from RIP into OSPF, first thing it's going to do is it's going to deny the tag 110. I don't know if there's a better way to do this, but that's sort of the method that I went with here. So router 2 is this first router I'm showing you here on the top. If I do show run partition route map, you can kind of see what I'm doing here. Route map redist, deny anything that matches 110. And for anything else, it must match a prefix list RIP and set the tag 120 and show run partition IP prefix. And you can see here the RIP prefix list is matching the loopback on 4 and the multi-access segment between routers 2, 3, and 4. The other side of that magic is here on router 3, show run partition route map, and then show run partition IP prefix list. So here on the route map, again, the first thing we're going to do is deny anything with a tag of 120. So if we come here on router 2, we see anything that matches the prefix list RIP, we're setting to 120. When that comes back around to R3, first thing we're going to do is deny it. We're denying it from being redistributed from OSPF into RIP. So we're sort of breaking that cycle of redistribution. And the same can be said here for the bottom half of that route map here, where anything that matches the OSPF prefix list, we're setting the tag on 110, and as we redistribute that from RIP into OSPF, first thing we're going to do is find that tag and deny it. And that works great. One of the things we can see here on router 4, I call router 4 sort of my innocent bystander. It's just hanging out over in the RIP routing domain, soaking up all of the routes that get redistributed into RIP. So if we do show IP route, we can see the prefix, for example, the loopback on router 1. And if I want to do that, show IP route, we'll see router 1. And we can see right here, it has a tag. That tag gets carried in the advertisement, which I thought was pretty cool. I haven't actually taken a peek at that in Wireshark. We can see the tag again here of 110, so we know that that was being tagged. I don't know if there's a way to filter show IP route, if there's a way to filter. Look at this. Will this work? Oh my God. Brilliant. That's awesome. So I didn't know if there was a way to do that, and actually I just found that out right here. A show IP route tag, and I guess I can see the tag value. Now, can we do 120? If we should not be able to see any 120. Good. That means my tagging, my redistribution is correct. Here on router 3, we should not see any 120, but we should see some 110. Show IP route tag 120. It is seeing 120. Where's that getting tagged? 10.1. Oh, routing entry 4444. We should be uh-oh. Via 110. Oh, okay. So I'm not blocking myself from, so in router 3, I was trying to understand, why am I still learning router 4's loopback via OSPF, and my next hop is actually not closer to router 4, it's actually further away, it goes back to router 1. And the reason is I'm not filtering this prefix out. I'm still allowing myself to learn this prefix via OSPF. However, I am not um, I'm not allowing router 3 to redistribute this prefix back into RIP. But what I would like to do is I would actually like to see this filtered out completely and make it so I can only see it via RIP. And I think the only way to do that is going to be to lower that administrative distance. So if I do show IP RIP database, that sucker's not in there, but it should be. I'm just wondering if I'm in between like a RIP timer or something. Let me see here. Show IP route. I just wanted to see what the tag of 110 is going to show me. So I don't see anything tagged 110. But I believe that I should show run partition route map. Set tag 110. I'm seeing nothing there. Let me check the inverse over here. Show IP route tag 110 and 120. Huh. I'm not seeing anything over here. I wonder, I'm going to have to think about that. Hey, passed my cert on Friday. Haven't received the congrats email yet. Others have received it within 3 to 4 hours. I'm confused. Hey, what cert was that? Congratulations, by the way. But what cert were you going for? Congratulations, man. Passing any cert is worth a celebration. Anything that takes a good amount of hard work is worth it. Why can't I see show IP route? Let me see what's going on in the routing table here. Show IP. I see that there in the database. Show IP RIP database. Show IP route. CSENT. Very cool. Very cool. So CSENT is the first half of CCNA, right? So here I'm wondering if I can router RIP and do like distance 109 for 10.1.2.3.4.4. I wanted to see this bounce to a RIP route. Do you know how long it takes? CSENT? No, I don't. If you're asking me how long does it take for CSENT? Well, congratulations on passing your CSENT. That's really awesome. When I did my CCNA, I did the full CCNA. At the time, it was called 200/120, I think was the test number. And I did the full CCNA. I didn't break it up into the two parts when I did it. That was about 4.5 or maybe 5 years ago. I haven't received the email. I don't ever remember receiving an email about passing a CSENT. I remember walking out of the testing center with your pass results in hand, but I never received an email. I don't think from any Cisco exam that I've passed. Yeah, I was going to say, even I passed the CCIE written this past June. I haven't received any emails. Maybe they've changed policies. I don't know where you are in the world or what the testing policy is or the results. But I certainly have never received an email. I know for the big exams like the CCDE and the CCIE, for the lab exam, you'll receive, I think, an email that your scores have been posted. I don't know if it's a pass-fail or not that comes in the email, but you have to log in to check it. So just following up with this this routing table here, let me see. Show IP route. There it is. Okay, just needed the timeout. So that's what I wanted to see here was I wanted the direct path to the to this prefix directly to router 4, which is originating it via RIP. So now if I do show IP route tag, I wonder if I'll see anything now. And 120. No, I don't see anything here. Show IP route tag 110. 120. I'm just sort of exploring this new command here. I've never used it before, and I'm trying to figure out where it has its most value. Do you know how long it takes? I haven't received the email. I will wait for this week. Studied hard for this, and I'm loving this. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, really great work, man. You should you should definitely celebrate. I certainly did when I passed mine, which was some time ago. So let me see. Yeah, the routing entry for 4 has a tag of 120. The routing entry for this has a tag of 120, and I'm not going to install those in the routing table. So the show IP route tag is only going to show routes in the routing table that contain that tag, is the way I'm reading it. Because now when I do 110 and 120, I have 0 output here. And that's because these two prefixes are the ones that have the tag 4, and they're now both directly connected, so an OSPF route won't beat it, and a RIP route, which I've lowered the administrative distance, which now beats the OSPF route, so that won't be in the routing table either. So in that case, I wonder what I'm matching. Let's come over here to router 4, show IP route. Let's just see what tag 110 looks like. Looks like I'm seeing quad 1, the link between router 1 and 2. But I'm not seeing the link between router 1 and 3. That's what I'm seeing here. That's strange. And let's see 120. Shouldn't I see the one between 1 and 3? Let me see. Show IP, excuse me. Show run, partition, IP prefix. Between 1 and 3, I think I should. Oh, you know what? Show IP route. That's a connected prefix. Although I feel like show IP route, I should see that sucker, right? Oh, look, it's learned via RIP. So now I'm just sort of exploring show IP route. I'll throw this sucker in here. And it has no tag. And it's not tagged because why? I think it's because here where that originates on router 3, it's directly connected. It's not an OSPF learned route. And we're only applying those tags to the OSPF learned routes. I'm trying to think what is the logic inside the router that makes that decision. I don't know. I'm gonna have to come back to it, but this is exactly why we do the studies. Exactly why I do the studies. It was a good night doing some redistribution all around the board. I still have some more work to do, and I just want to be able to, you know, I'm trying to show an example of a topology. I don't have one here handy, but here's one. So I want to be able to take a look at a topology like that, which has, 10 routers and 4 switches, and be able to, no matter what the tasks are, be able to understand the relationship of the routing boundaries. Normally, that's not that big a deal if you're just dealing with one router redistributing from one protocol into another, and it's just like what I call like a string of pearls, or like just a chain of routing protocols, when everything just needs to go one way and needs to have one return path. But when there's multiple points of redistribution, it really thanks, Trust the Process, man. Thanks for hanging out. I really appreciate it, and congratulations on passing your CCENT. I wish you the best of luck on the next half of that journey. Take care. That's going to be really awesome. At the points when there's mutual redistribution, there's definitely some things that need to be made aware of, certain behaviors about how the routing protocols are going to react to each other, and how you can have a circle of redistribution going on, like a redistribution loop. And so I'm just trying to make myself sort of aware of that, and make sure I lab it up and I get hands-on, because I find that I'm finding myself getting stuck on some of those areas when that happens. And I don't want to. I want to get stuck on it here in these labs. I don't want to get stuck on it while I'm sitting for the CCIE. And I've had very good results using this study method in other CCIE lab prep labs that I do. Where the redistribution that I did last week, I saw on my lab this weekend, and I was like, oh, I know exactly what that is. I was able to just do it no problem. But I did see this problem as well, and sometimes it throws me for a loop. So I definitely want to master it as the what I call dual mutual redistribution. That's where you have mutual redistribution between two protocols in more than one place. Can be challenging. And so tonight was RIP and OSPF, and I think maybe tomorrow I'll just try it out with EIGRP. It behaves a little bit differently, but I don't think it's going to change the redistribution or the sort of rules that we're trying to build around that. So I'll work on that tomorrow, and hope we'll get some cool labs going this weekend. All right, see ya.